In addition to governors grabbing headlines and politicians and media pundits all over the country weighing in, trying to focus and shape the issue of what do we do next, there are a handful of kids across the area in local high schools planning a walkout to join the conversation about gun control. One of those kids is a freshman at Ridgewood High School. His name is Lawrence Fine. Lawrence, welcome to Chasing News. How are you?
Good, how are you?
So, Lawrence, let me ask you this. Are you a politically active kid? I mean, what is it that is driving what I understand you are organizing a walkout in April?
The force driving these walkouts that are happening across the nation, it's not political activism. It's just being a kid.
As a student, are you safer in your mind thinking about the long-term political impacts of gun control, or knowing that you've got cops and security guards and locked doors and a process to keep bad guys out of your school?
The issue isn't that complex. It's simple solutions that we can do that are much simpler than that, and it can be much more effective than that.
Are you scared as a kid, as a student, that there was such a colossal failure of law enforcement to keep this kid from buying a gun and even keep him from being on the street and being able to get into the school?
It is. Yeah, it is very scary that our government isn't protecting us. But that is not what is happening. The politicians in Congress, they represent the NRA. They represent the people who are giving them tens of millions of dollars.
I have made this a point to say that I think the schools should be very strong in keeping kids in the class. So when you do your walkout, get back in touch with us. Want to talk and see if you got suspended.
Of course.
All right. Thank you. All right. You've heard the student perspective. Well, at least one side of the student perspective. Let's talk about the teachers for a minute. Teachers all across the country weighing in. You see them on Twitter and Facebook talking about this issue. How do you keep schools safe? One teacher that is not happy with the suggestion that teachers, at least some of them, should be armed, at least the ones with concealed carry permits and proper training. One teacher in our area, he's a 10th grade history teacher at Union High School. His name is Nick Ferroni, and he's not happy about this idea at all. Nick, welcome to Chasing News. How are you?
Thank you very much, Bill. Thanks for having me.
What do you think will make our schools safe?
Obviously, there's a lot of talk about potentially arming teachers in schools, which, I mean, if we're at the point where we have to arm teachers, Bill, we kind of need to reevaluate society and not our schools. There are so many things we could possibly do. Again, as a teacher, I would not want to put my students in harm's way. And I know most educators, we're compassionate, loving people. The idea of even pulling a gun on someone goes against our makeup as educators. And a lot of things we could do. I mean, even people suggesting as giving veterans are having a tough enough time finding work. Having their presence on campus. We actually have 2 substitutes who are war veterans at our school.
Nick, let's back up in the conversation just a bit. You've got a situation where I listened to the sheriff in Broward County talk about gun control, and in my opinion, he was deflecting from an utter failure of law enforcement to recognize a kid that either A, needed help, or at least B, needed to be taken in off the streets. My God, there's got to be something that we can do in regards to law enforcement to prevent this from happening.
My concern is my students' emotional stability. If I'm not building self-esteem, self-confidence, to me, it's my job is a waste. I mean, a lot of times it's history and self-esteem.
Are you afraid of guns? And if you had somebody who was properly trained and armed to protect the school, are you going to feel more or less safe?
I would not be safe, and I would not feel comfortable with my students in the classroom if we had a gun, even in a safe.
Okay. All right, Nick, thank you. Appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Bill.